Hey there, so we are going to be looking at volume today. A lot of people like volume better than surface area. It is a lot quicker to calculate and there's not too much that you have to really think about or keep in mind. So volume is the space inside of a 3D figure. Basically, if you look at this page, the volume is just how many tiny boxes there are. If you were to sit down and take each of these apart and count up the tiny boxes, that's the volume of the shape. Now, in elementary school, a lot of people are taught the formula volume equals length times width times height. And while that's true, it only works for rectangular prisms, but we're going to be doing some triangular prisms as well. So we're not going to use that formula anymore. The formula we're going to use that works for every single shape you could ever possibly want to find volume for is volume equals capital B times H. Capital B represents the area of the base, and the reason that it's capitalized is because you have to do a calculation to find that. It's not just a single number. You have to find the area of the base, and then you multiply it by the height. And it's not any harder. It's really the same thing as length times width times height, but it works for any shape. So let's take a look at this page and look at how we could do that. Now, if we could take this shape apart, we could literally count how many cubes there are, but that would be a lot of work. We're going to do a shortcut. The first thing that I would recommend you do is to count 3 dimensions. I would recommend counting how many cubes are going across, how many cubes are going deep, and how many cubes tall it is. So pause the video and see if you could get those 3 numbers. Unpause when you're ready. Okay, hopefully you're ready. So going across, I got that there were 9 cubes. Going deep, I'm going to use orange instead of yellow. I got 8 cubes. And then going up and down, I got 7 cubes. So what volume means is if we took one of these layers and then multiplied it by how many layers there are, we would get the total volume. What I'm going to do is have us look at the top layer. We're not going to be doing this much work every single time. This is just for the very first problem while I'm explaining it. Can you pause the video and find out how many cubes would be in that green layer? Hopefully you're ready. So for that green layer, it would be 9 by 8. So the green layer would be 9 times 8, which is 72. So one layer of cubes is 72 cubes. Now, how many times does that green layer repeat? In other words, I have to multiply 72 by something, and then that'll be my final answer. How many times does that green layer repeat in this overall figure? 7 times. So I have to do 72 times 7, and that equals 504. And then there's no units, so we just say units cubed. Now let me break down what we just did. The formula for volume is volume equals area of the base times the height. First, we found the area of the base. The area of the base was 72. Then we found the height, which is 7, and we multiplied 72 times 7, and that was 504. So our final answer was 504 units cubed. We're going to try that again. Okay, so the first thing I would do is again just count how many cubes are going across, how many cubes are going back, and how many cubes are going up and down. So pause the video, find those numbers. Okay, hopefully you are ready. So there are 8 cubes going across, 4 going back, and 5 going up and down. That just makes everything else easier. So for a rectangular prism, any side could actually be the cube, but could be the base. But just for consistency, let's use the top and bottom again as the base. So if I look at this top layer, the first thing I want you to do is to find out how many cubes are in that top layer, then multiply it by how many layers there are going down. Pause the video and see if you could finish finding the volume here. All right, so I'm going to use the formula to show this. Volume equals area of the base times the height. And I'm going to do the area of the base first. The area of the base can be found by using 8 and 4. Because 8 would be the top layer going that way, 4 would be the top layer going that way. So 8 times 4, and that's 32. I'm going to save that number in my head for later. And then the number of times this top layer repeats is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or this 5 right here. So 8 by 4, 32 cubes repeats 5 times in the shape. 32 times 5 is 160, and then we're going to write units cubed. Okay, pause the video and see if you could find number 8 all by yourself. Unpause when you're ready to go over it. Okay, so the first thing I did on number 8 was label all the sides. This one was 4, this one was 7, and this one was 8. Then I found the area of the base. So if I'm going to choose this side to be my base, color that in so everyone can see it. I know the formula is volume equals area of the base times the height. And the area of the base is going to be found by doing 4 times 7. If I want to find how many cubes are in that top layer, it's going to be found by 4 times 7. Then I have to multiply by how many times the base repeats. It repeats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, which is always the number that's out here. So 4 times 7 times 8. Now I can multiply. You could type this whole thing into your calculator. 4 times 7 times 8, and you could be done with it. If you want to do it step by step though, 4 times 7 is 28 times 8 is 224 units cubed. And you could just use U to represent units. And that's all volume is. So you could see we're really doing length times width times height. We're really just doing 4 times 7 times 8 like you learned in other classes or elementary school. It's the same thing. But the strategy we're doing is creating a good habit for when we get into more complicated shapes, because it won't always be this easy. So that's why we're trying a different way. On number 9, I want to show you how we could actually use a different side of the cube or the rectangular prism to be our base. So first pause the video and label the sides like we've been doing before. All right, hopefully you've done that. 5, 4, and 3. Now what happens if I say that this is my base instead? For a rectangular prism, you're allowed to choose any side to be the base, because in order for it to be the base, it just needs to have another side across from it that's equal to it. And this one has this side back here. So you could say that these two are the bases. You could also do the top and the bottom, but I want to try one on the side just for fun. So volume equals area of the base times the height. So this time, the area of the base is going to be that pink highlighted part, and then the height is going to be how many times the base repeats going in this direction. And that's okay, it's just a shape on its side. Pause the video, see if you can complete this problem. Okay, so for the area of the base, it's going to be 3 times 4, and then the height is how many times the base repeats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is the same as the third number we haven't used yet. And it'll always be the same as that. So 3 times 4 is 12, so the base has an area of 12, and then there's 5 bases, because they're all stacked. 12 times 5 is 60 units cubed. So doing the figure on the side like this with the base on the side is exactly the same. And it doesn't matter which one you picked. If we had chosen the top as the base, we'd get the exact same answer. If you don't believe me, you could try it out. All right, try 10 and 11. Pause the video, unpause when you're ready to go over them. Okay, hopefully you're ready. I'm going to start by labeling 2, 3, and 11. And I'm going to go back to choosing the top as my base this time. It really just doesn't matter. So volume equals the area of the base times the height. The area of the base would be 2 times 3. That's how we would find how many cubes are in that top layer. And then the base repeats 11 times, which you don't really need to count because it's just that third number out there. So it's going to be 6 times 11, so the top layer has 6 cubes, times 11 layers of the cubes is 66 units squared. And if you chose a different side for your base, you still should have gotten the same answer. Last one, so I'm going to start by labeling it 3, 6, and 7. Now, I bet most of you chose the top layer as your base. I'm going to shake things up, and I'm going to choose the front layer while I'm going over this. So you should have already been done. But I want to show you how even if you choose a different side, you still get the same volume. For a rectangular prism, and only a rectangular prism, you're allowed to choose any of the sides. So volume equals area of the base times the height. The area of that pink section is 3 times 7. And then it's repeated once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, the third number. So it's going to be 21 times 6, which is 126 units cubed. Even if you didn't pick the front side like I did, if you picked the top or the bottom or the left or the right, you would still get the same answer of 126 units cubed. As long as it's a rectangular prism, you're allowed to choose whatever side you want. All right, we're going to look at some other shapes that aren't just rectangular prisms. On this page, we have 2 rectangular prisms and 2 triangular prisms. I'm going to show you one of each. You can see that they've actually chosen a base for us on each of these problems. What I would do at the top is to write the formula really big so you can see it. I'd write volume equals area of the base times height. And you might even want to make a little note that the capital B stands for area of the base. It doesn't just stand for base like in triangles. That's why it's capitalized. So in number 1, I'm going to copy down my formula. See if you could pause the video and find the volume. It's the same thing as we did with the cubes. Unpause when you're ready to go over it. Okay, let's take a look. So they are showing us that they want us to use one of the 3 sides as the bases. That's why they have them all colored with different colors. For rectangular prisms, I do tend to just choose the top or the bottom, but it doesn't really matter. So how would I find the area of that pink section? Well, that 3 would transfer up here, and that 2 would transfer up here. So the area of the base is going to be 3 times 2. And then how many times does the base repeat? Well, they don't show us in cubes, but it's always the remaining number. It repeats 4 times. So I want to do 3 times 2, which is 6, times 4, which is 24, and this time I do have units, centimeters cubed. Volume is the only thing that has units cubed in it. If you chose a different side for the base, you still should have gotten 24 centimeters cubed. Okay, so pause the video and try number 3. Okay, that one I'm going to leave without going over it, so that way we have something to check. And now I'm going to show you how to do number 2, which is a triangular prism. Now notice how they have the triangle shaded in a different color. They're trying to show you that you have to use the triangle as the base in a triangular prism. You can't use the bottom if it's not the triangle. A lot of people will try to use this as the base for a triangular prism because it's like the bottom. But that's not accurate. Just like they have the triangle shaded, that's what we have to pick. So they shaded it for us this time, but if they didn't shade it for us, we could shade it in ourselves, and we need to use the triangle. It could be the front triangle or it could be the back triangle. They will have the same area, but either way, those are the only bases on a triangular prism, so they're the only things we can use. So here's our formula. Volume equals area of the base times the height. But this time the area of the base is a little bit more complicated, because in order to find the area of a triangle, we have to use the formula 1/2 times base times height again. Now this is really confusing. This part of the formula is referring to the triangle. So the base and the height of the triangle. Then this part of the formula is referring to the whole triangular prism, the height of the prism. So let's break this down. Can you start by finding just this? Find the area of the triangle. What numbers would you use? Well, hopefully you've had some time to think about it. You would find the right angle. And what two numbers make the right angle? 6 and 7. So in that formula, I'm going to do 1/2 times 6 times 7. That's going to be the area of the triangular base. That triangle has an area that can be found by 1/2 times 6 times 7. Now, what's this other h? Do I use the 6 or the 7 again? No, what I'm going to use is how far apart the triangles are from each other. That's the height of the whole prism, which is 8. So times 8. So one triangle is worth 1/2 times 6 times 7. And then how many layers there are is how tall the prism is between the two triangles, and that's 8. Now let's solve that. So in your calculator, you could type 0.5 times 6 times 7, or I could do 1/2 times 6 first. That's 3 times 7 is 21. Now I have to drop down the 8. 21 times 8. And that equals 168 feet squared. Cubed, sorry, not squared. Cubed. All right, and I'm going to leave that last one, number 4, as practice for you, but use number 2 as a model for it. All right, thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure you guys finish up 3 and 4.